Okay, so welcome to the second session of counting and combinatorics in this IMOB camp. And so far we have covered overview of counting, some basic principles of counting and permutations. And today we will be having a look at pigeonhole principle and combinations. So some of the most interesting topics in combinatorics. So let's move ahead. Today we'll have a look at combinations of selected objects and the pigeonhole principle and some extra info that you might find useful. Okay, so let's go ahead with combinations. And so what is combinations about? So combinations is just an interesting aspect of counting, and it is essentially the number of ways of choosing a number of objects. So yesterday we saw the number of ways of arranging some objects, and now we'll choose a number of finite options. Okay, so combinatorics is essentially a field and it is quite central to algebra, probability theory, data science, and computing. And it's quite useful in the whole of mathematics, actually. Every aspect of mathematics has some problem due to which it is invented, and the mathematicians are striving to solve that problem in that specific theory. So for combinatorics, for combinations, the problem statement is that we want to find the number of ways in which we can select or choose are distinct objects from a total of n objects. So n objects should also be distinct. And for the objects to be non-distinct, we do have multi-set combinations and multi-set permutations, but they are out of scope of this class. And we define NCR or C n comma R as the answer to the above question. And what is the question? That the number of ways in which we can select or choose r distinct objects from a total of n distinct objects is NCR. Okay, so we just defined the answer, and without going through the derivation because it is quite out of scope, we could have done it, but let it be. So Cn of r, Cn comma r is n factorial upon r factorial into n minus r factorial. And if you look at it closely, then c n comma r is just p n comma r divided by r factorial, right? Because p n comma r is just n factorial upon n minus r factorial, but now we are dividing by r factorial as well. Okay, so let's move ahead. Okay, so there's some info about n choose r. So the symbol n choose r, read NCR or n choose r, where r and n are positive integers with r less than or equal to n. And this is because we are choosing r objects from n objects, right? So r should be less than n, because we cannot choose a number which is bigger from a smaller number. That would be meaningless, actually. And it is defined as n choose r is equal to n into n minus 1 into n minus 2 and so on till n minus r plus 1 upon r into r minus 1 into r minus 2 and so on till 3 into 2 into 1, or equivalently n factorial upon r factorial into n minus r factorial. And also one important identity, and I think in the one of the questions that we had in the quiz, there was some similarity, not actually a lot, but just a small similarity was that n minus r is also equal to r. So we can say that in place of this r we can write n minus r. So n choose n minus r is equal to n choose r. So if you have 7 choose 3, then 7 choose 3 is equal to 7 choose 4, or 10 choose 6 is equal to 10 choose 4. And this is reflected also in the Pascal's triangle, and you will see why. If a plus b equal to n, then we have n choose a equal to n choose b, and that's equivalent to this. Also, we had defined 0 factorial equal to 1. So we now define n choose 0 as 1 and 0 choose 0 as 1. Okay, so for some of the most important thing that we discussed here was that n choose r is equal to n factorial upon r factorial into n minus r factorial. And we see that n minus r is also equal to r. So we find that n choose n minus r is equal to n choose r, and which can be illustrated very simply by some examples like 50 choose 24 is equal to 50 choose 26, or maybe 100 choose 60 is equal to 100 choose 40. Even 100 choose 99 is equal to 100 choose 1. And that's because if we think about it intuitively, then if we are choosing 99 people, then we are also choosing one person to be left out. And if we are choosing one person, then we are choosing 99 people to be left out. And that's why they are actually the same. Okay, so now let's move ahead. Yeah, so permutations versus combinations. When to use permutations, when to use combinations, and why. Okay, so there is somewhat confusion, but if you have the concept clear, but then you would have no problems in using permutations and combinations, and they're quite useful tools. In mathematical Olympiads, most of the questions are not based on one concept; they are based on one, at least two or three concepts. So you must be really having permutations and combinations as a handy tool, which you can apply anywhere for any problem by identifying. So the main thing here is identifying how you can apply permutations and combinations. So to make it clear, in permutations, the order matters, and that's it. In permutations, the order matters. That is, you're arranging the object. So if in the question you are asked to arrange the object, then you have to use permutations. But if you are just told to select the object or choose the object without considering the order, without, if the order does not matter, then we are using combinations. So we have to use combinations over there. And actually, if we see, then all of these are just some specific forms of the multiplication principle. So we are using multiplication principle in some different forms, due to which these we get all of these formulas. And actually, everything can be solved using multiplication principle, but we have to find the right argument. We need to find the right statement, and we need to find the right way to make the procedure. So we need to follow the steps, the right steps. We need to find the right number of outcomes. So for given whatever we are given with, we should be able to find the right number of steps, the right steps, and they should be independent, of course, of the earlier outcomes. And so drawing a tree diagram may help. And okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, so a few examples over here. So the same example as earlier, but here the order doesn't matter. We had seen yesterday that we want to sing 3 songs out of 7, but the order does not matter. Maybe if you choose ABC, BAC, ACB, BCA, BCA, all of them are the same, right? So actually, you can see by this why we say that the order doesn't matter. So in combinations we divide permutations by r factorial, because ABC is the same as BCA is the same as CAB, and there are 6 permutations, that is 3 factorial permutations of them. So we divide P and R by r factorial, and that gives us the right answer. And the answer is 7 choose 3. So we want to choose 3 songs from 7. Next we have, in how many ways can you select a 4-letter word in the English alphabet. And of course, given that you cannot sorry given that you cannot okay, so now let's move ahead. And now we want to find a committee of 5 people from a group of 6 men and 4 women. And how many committees are possible? So these are really application based questions. If and we are also given some conditions that there are to be 3 men and 2 women in each committee, and so we can split the problem into 2 steps. So the first step would be to form a committee of 3 men from 6 men, and second step would be to form a committee of 2 women from 4 women. So, and if I guess this you can understand why these would be independent, because when we draw the tree diagram, we would have the same because these two would be independent, because they simply diverse. They diverse from a branch, and whatever you have in the male side won't affect the female side, and that could be one possible way you can say that. So now we split the problem into two steps actually, and we have two groups to choose from. So one is the group of male and the other is the group of female. For the first group, we have to choose 3 men out of 6, and that would simply be 6 choose 3. From the female group, we would have to choose 2 women from a group of 4. So that would be 4 choose 2, and as we discussed earlier, by multiplication rule, we would have 4 choose 2 times 6 choose 3 is equal to 120. So we would have 120 different committees that would be possible. Okay, now just some more information about, and like I discussed earlier about the Pascal triangle, the numbers n choose r are known as the binomial coefficients because they appear in the coefficients in the expansion of a plus b to the power n. Specifically, when we talk about the binomial theorem, we have a plus b to the power n is equal to the summation of all n choose r and multiplied by a raised to n minus k times b raised to k. And if you do not know about the binomial theorem, then don't worry about this, because this is just some more information for those who know some part about the binomial theorem or about combinations. So you can relate it with these. So the combinations is actually quite um, which R do you mean, Tanmay? If you mean this R, then it's just a generalized number. It's just a variable. I don't think it is from here. It's just to say that binomial coefficients are from. I mean, they're related to the binomial theorem. Okay, so just to give an example, you can say that if you have is there a proof of this? Krishna, actually, what I wanted to tell you is that these concepts are interrelated. So there's no proof. Actually, we have defined it in this way so that they are related. So combinatorics is quite closely associated with binomial theorem, and binomial theorem is only actually very closely related to combinatorics and Pascal's triangle and such things. And actually, we could have included that, but it would be too much for this lecture, or maybe we can hold another lecture for the binomial theorem and its properties. And there are many properties, very interesting properties of the binomial theorem actually. Okay, so now let's go ahead, and now let's start with the pigeonhole principle, which is a very simple but quite useful concept in combinatorics. What the pigeonhole principle states is that if there are n plus 1 objects and there are n places to put them in, so you consider there are n plus 1 balls, or maybe there are n plus 1 objects, any sort of objects, whatever we want to consider. And suppose there are n places to put them in. Suppose there's a shelf and you have n places to put them in. Then at least one place will have more than one object. So if you have n places and you have n plus 1 objects, then at least one place will have more than one object. And that's quite intuitive, because at least there would be n objects would get placed in, even if Okay, so what I want all of you to know is that it's not that all the all the objects must be kept in different places. Even if you keep all the objects in one place, it is counted. But what we do is that instead of going through all of the combinations, and actually we could have done that, we can do that through multi-set combinations, but without going through all the possible outcomes of the places, like 3 in the first place and 2 in the second place, and 4 in the first place and 1 in the second place, we can quite easy we can prove this by, we can verify this by proving its worst case. And the worst case would be that you place each of the object in a different container, so no two objects are kept in the same container. But the problem is that when you come to the last object, then you don't have any place to put it in, so you have to put in any one of the earlier containers. So that is why one object is one place will have more than one object, at least one place. So if there is at least here, so you could have two objects, 3 objects, 4 objects, maybe infinity. But okay, so there are huge implications of the PHP, and we use them in proofs and graph theory and probability and whatnot. So it's actually quite an application based topic in math. Now let's have a look at the strong form of PHP, which is somewhat generalized. Okay, so I think we have an example before that. So let's pigeonhole principle is not completely a topic in combinatorics, but we have included pigeonhole principle as part of combinatorics and part different topics. So no topic in maths is it's a single it's included in a single subtopic or something. So you always find some interesting interrelations in math, and they are quite useful. If you see, when you have some relations between algebra and geometry, you have some relations between coordinate geometry and algebra, even some relations between combinatorics and geometry, and there are some relations that you cannot even imagine. So okay, so a box contains 3 pairs of socks colored red, blue, and green respectively. Okay. If the socks are chosen without looking, so you don't look at them and you randomly choose the socks, then how many socks must be drawn to guarantee at least one matching pair? So you have 6 socks and 3 pairs of socks. So you want to find number of socks and not the number of pair. Okay, so you are drawing the socks without looking, so you don't know whether you are drawing the right pair or not. So what is the minimum number of socks that you should draw, so that you can guarantee someone that I must have a pair? And the answer is 4. But why? Can anyone tell me why the answer is 4? Okay, so there are some hands up. Wait a second, I'll just unmute. Krishna, okay, go on.
Yeah, so am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the socks are putted. So what are the possible things that one can pick up when no matching pair is there? One is red, blue, blue, green, and green, red. Okay, so these became 3. But there must be one, it is saying that there should least be one matching pair. So
Right.
after the 3 turns of being choosing different socks, there would be only one chance that the person will put one matching pair.
Okay, so yes, Samyak, what you are saying is also right, and what Krishna said is actually quite not conceptually right. It's because you say you are choosing 2 socks, and you are giving me the possible outcomes of choosing 2 socks. Okay, so let's ask someone else. Okay, Khushi, you can go ahead.
The worst case.
Yes, Nikhil, you want to unmute me?
Sorry, I think Khushi was speaking.
Oh, yes. Because no, it was coming that you want to unmute me, so that's it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on, Khushi.
worst case scenario is the first three socks are that the first three socks are red, blue, and green. So the fourth sock has to be something matching.
Right. So you can put it that way, and that would also be correct. Wait a second. Right, Samyak, that would be correct. Khushi, that would be correct. Skanda, I think I did not quite understand what you said. Okay, you have given me two cases because there will be one of each color and one more extra of one of the colors. I did not quite understand that. Just 1 minute. I'll read that once again. Right. Your case one is the only correct answer. No need of case two, right? Because the case one is the worst scenario. The best scenario in this case would be that you choose the first one, it comes red. The second one, it also comes red. But the worst case would be that you choose the first one, it comes red. Second comes blue. Third comes green. What then? So you must pick four socks, right? So the fourth will be either red, blue, or green. Yeah, Tanmay. So exactly. So what you all of you have done is explained me the concept of pigeonhole principle. You could have simply stated that by pigeonhole principle we have three places to put, and we have three places. So there should be at least four number of objects. Right. So all of you have given the correct answer, and it was a really nice explanation. Okay, let's go ahead to the strong form of the pigeonhole principle. Okay, so now what does the strong form say? The strong or general form of the pigeonhole principle says that if more than kn objects are placed into n boxes, then at least one box must contain more than k objects. And if you see the first, the weaker form of the pigeonhole principle is just this principle when k equal to 1, right? So if there's n objects or n plus 1 objects, if more than n objects, so the least case would be, the worst case would be more than, so we have n plus 1 objects. That's the worst case for more than n objects, right? So n plus 1 objects are placed into n boxes, then at least one box must contain more than and one object. And that's exactly the weak form of pigeonhole principle. And just a small example would be that there are 11 toys and 2 boxes. If we put each toy in a box, then at least one box has 5 toys, because there are only 2 options and you keep on putting it anyway. So it's sort of the middle place. You at least have 5. Here you can see that k equals 5 and n equals 2. Okay, so does any of you have any doubts? Okay, so Imran, I think Tanmay, Khushi, Skanda, and Samyak have given the right answer. Okay, so this is a small problem based on the strong form of the pigeonhole principle. A school has n students. What is the smallest n such that at least 2 of the students have matching first and last initials? And the answer is 26 times 26 plus 1, which is 677. But I want to know why. Can any of you explain this to me? Okay, go on, Samir.
We all know there are 26 alphabets in English language. I hope all of you know.
Right.
And the first letter and the last letter. So we use the MR here. So we get 26 square per combinations are there.
Right.
Right. Scenario.
Sorry, I think I lost you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I think Samyak, we can't hear Samyak though. Okay, so let's ask Tanmay.
Consider boxes for first letter and last letter.
Mm-hmm.
There are 26 boxes for the first letter uh, and 26 for the second letter.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are more than uh, by the strong form of PHP, if there are more than kn uh, kn pigeons, then they will not fit in that boxes.
Right. Right.
Yes.
So what all of you are saying is exactly right, and Samyak was also right in saying that. Just let me take a look at the chat. Mhm. Okay, so what everyone is saying is this 26 stands for the first initial, and this 26 stands for the last initial, right? So it can be repeating, right? Someone could have initials AA or maybe CC, DA, or maybe GB, anything. So we have 26 times 26 chances of that, and plus one is because we want the. So what does this stand for? Is it stands for that you are having suppose all the students have a different letter. Let's consider the worst case. That worst case scenario would be that. Everyone that we are considering is having a different first and last initial. So we consider all the first scenarios, that there are 26 times 26 people, and then we take one more person, so that he has any of the earlier person's same initial as the earlier person, right? So this one would have the same initial as someone amongst these people. Yes, Samya.
Yes, sorry, I had a net issue.
Yeah.
So have you explained it or should I let it be?
Actually, I explained it, but you did a good job in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think you, if you want to have some nice problems about pigeonhole principle, then you can go to brilliant.org and just search pigeonhole principle, and there are some really nice problems over there. Okay, so that's the end of today's lecture, and if any of you have any questions, then you can ask. Let's stop the recording. Okay, so does anyone of you have any questions regarding whatever we have done in these 2 days of combinatorics or PHP?